compared to Mr. Ruto's 50.5%, but Mr. Odinga does not accept these results. In an interview, he also said he would respect the outcome of the court's decision and that the judgment could have major implications on the electoral process across Africa. He added that the future of democracy in Africa was at stake, citing retrogression in some African countries. Moving on, at least 6 people have been killed after torrential rains caused by flash floods and landslides in parts of Sierra Leone capital Freetown, privately owned, according to privately owned Sierra Leone website. The 6, including a family of 3, were killed after a mudslide destroyed 2 homes in an informal settlement in Looking Town, situated on a steep slope above the Kisi neighborhood. Freetown Mayor Yvonne Aki visited areas affected by the heavy rains and urged those affected to move to safe grounds. She thanked the different agencies that came to the aid of the affected residents. And over to Pakistan, more than 1,000 people have lost their lives because of flooding in Pakistan. On the 28th of August, the country's military rescued a boy who was stranded in the middle of a heavily flooded stream. Officials say that the monsoon this year has affected more than 30 million people, which equates to 1 in 7 Pakistanis. And in the world of technology, NASA has called off the launch of its big New Moon rocket, the Space Launch System, SLS. Controllers struggled to get an engine on the 100-meter tall vehicle cooled down to its correct operating temperature. They had previously worried about what appeared to be a crack high up on the rocket, but eventually determined it was merely frost buildup. The SLS is the biggest rocket ever developed by NASA. It will be used to send astronauts back to the moon. The maiden flight, a part of NASA's Artemis program, is just a demonstration with no one on board, but ever more complex missions are planned for the future that will see people live on the lunar surface for weeks at a time. And off to Europe, a Dutch commando has died of injuries after being shot outside an Indianapolis hotel while off duty. He was one of 3 Dutch soldiers, all in the US for training exercises, who were wounded in the shooting in the early hours of Saturday. According to the Dutch Defense Ministry, the 2 other victims are conscious and remain stable in hospital. Police believe the shooting followed an earlier disturbance in downtown Indianapolis, but gave few details. The city's law enforcement agencies are still investigating the shooting and have so far not reported any arrests. An earlier police statement said detectives did not believe it was a random act. The Royal Navy aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales has broken down shortly after embarking for exercises in the United States. The carrier left for Portsmouth Naval Base on Saturday before an emerging mechanical issue occurred. The Royal Navy has said HMS Prince of Wales remains in the South Coast exercise area. The vessel's departure was planned for Friday but had been delayed because of a technical issue. The Royal Navy was not able to offer any further details or confirm if the earlier technical issue was related to the mechanical problem. And Brazil's far-right President Jair Bolsonaro and left-wing former leader Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva have taken part in a very fast television debate ahead of October's general election. Mr. Bolsonaro accused the ex-president of having led the most corrupt government in Brazil's history. Lula, in turn, said Bolsonaro had destroyed Brazil. Opinion polls suggested Lula, who served as president from 2003 to 2010, is ahead in the election race. The gap between the 2 candidates seemed to be narrowing. On Sunday, the 2 frontrunners appeared on TV in Sao Paulo, along with 4 other presidential candidates. Mr. Bolsonaro, who is age 67, wasted no time in targeting Lula, who is aged 76. He also repeatedly called Lula an ex-convict in reference to Lula being convicted of corruption and jailed in 2018. And in Europe, European Union countries will face 5 to 10 terrible winters if nothing is done to reduce gas prices, according to Belgium's energy minister. Tine van der Straten said gas prices should be frozen and not used to dictate the price of electricity. EU states have been struggling with huge energy price hikes since key gas supplier Russia invaded Ukraine in February, triggering sanctions. Countries backing Ukraine are trying to cut imports of Russian gas and oil. Russia, which supplied the EU with 40% of its gas last year, has in turn restricted supplies. Natural gas is what is widely used in Europe to generate electricity. Because gas prices have risen, this cost is more. But significantly, the price is used when buying electricity wholesale, even when it comes from much cheaper renewable sources. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen also criticized the method used to price electricity being sold on the EU market. And finally, one of Iraq's most powerful figures who has been at the center of a long crisis over forming a government says he is retiring from political life. Muqtada al-Sadr, a firebrand Shia cleric with millions of followers, announced his decision on Twitter. Hundreds of his supporters have been camped outside Parliament for weeks after twice storming it in protest at the political deadlock. His forces were prominent in fighting U.S. troops after the 2003 invasion. Mr. Assad's announcement comes 2 days after he called for all parties and figures involved in political life following the US-led invasion of Iraq to quit. His political alliance won most of the seats in last October's general election, but his members of parliament later resigned amid deadlock with a rival Shia bloc over the appointment of a new prime minister. Well, that brings us to the end of this evening's news update. I congratulate once again our pastors Robert and Jessica Kayanja upon their 31st anniversary. May God continue to bless your marriage as you set the pace for all of us as a generation. I also remind you of the Karamoja Cry. That is the project that we are working on as the Robert Kayanja Ministries. It is a project that is aimed at saving the situation in Karamoja. Many people are dying, and thereby we have come up to salvage the situation there. You are welcome to join us as we deliver tons of food. Last week we delivered 70,000 tons of food, and this week we are aiming at delivering over 100,000 tons of food relief. Each household will get 50 kilograms of fortified meal that includes rice flour, maize flour, millet flour, oats, sugar, milk, and many others that will boost and energize the people of Karamoja back on their feet. These are our own people. They are Ugandans like us. Therefore, we need to come to their rescue. Once again, I wish you a very good night. Enjoy the rest of the programming. God bless you.